Behind the Hooks. With Manny DeGrandis. And Daniel Panetta.
What's going on? Welcome back to Behind the Hooks. I'm Danny Panetta.
I'm Manny DeGrandis.
And we have a special guest here, as you can probably see if you're watching the video. This handsome young man that's sitting in dead center of our new setup.
Under the big light.
Who hasn't said a word. No. He's the monk. We're going to call him the monk. Mr. Joel Gouveia is here. How's it going, Joel?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, man, this is great. So I feel a bit like a bitch. I'm the only one drinking coffee, as I'm the only one that probably woke up an hour
on
ago.
A Monday morning.
On a Monday morning. Oh, yeah, I guess I am in Monday mode.
You're in Monday mode. Mondays are, you did your gig last night, too, and everything, so.
Yeah.
That I made you stay later for.
Yeah.
His gig ends at 6. Me and Ryan show up at 10 to 6. We're ready to play and drink.
Yeah, that happened. Yeah, so anyway.
Have fun packing up, sucker.
That's kind of stuff. Yeah. I honestly didn't know what you were talking about until you said you and Ryan came, and I was like, oh, that was last night?
Yeah, that was last night.
Holy.
Yeah, I had a lot of beer. So, we're talking over, Joel, about our life.
So anyways,
you could just... So why are you here, Joel? Tell us why you're here. Okay, I'm joking. So, I reached out to Joel to have him out because Joel does something really cool. He does Aurora Palooza, which is done 2 years, and that's how we met. Mm-hmm. So tell us about Aurora Palooza, because I'll just ruin things if I explain it all. He's gonna be like, no, in the wrong month.
Yeah. So Aurora Palooza started when I was in my deep depression in 2020. COVID was hitting. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. Everyone was just kind of like unsure what the next little bit was going to look like. So I'm friends with quite a few of the local bands. So I just missed concerts so much. I've been all on a regular year go to 30 to 50 shows.
Yeah.
So it was just that time of the of my life that I was like, okay, what's going on with the music industry, right? There's been no shows. So I just kind of got together with my buddy Evan, who's in Yellow Magnolia, and I was like, let's just do it. Let's just do it on our own. So Town Park's got the band shell. So let's figure out what permits are involved, whatever. So I just kind of threw it together in 3 weeks, and
which is crazy.
What?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Hold on. Time out. 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was wild. I think it was July or maybe late June. And I was, summer was coming to an end almost, right? Yeah. So we were like, okay, how much, when's the latest we can do this? And I think it was mid-August, August 15th or something. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, let's just do this. And the mayor loved it because he was like, nothing was going on. Right?
So they'd have their weekly concerts.
Yeah.
And they weren't doing it because of all the restrictions.
Yeah.
And you were allowed not the full capacity, right? Because they were really hard with the numbers.
It was 100 in the first year.
100.
Which is
crazy.
How are you going to break even with 100 tickets?
Yeah.
So I basically presented to the town, and I was like, we're going to do these zones. Before this was even a thing, right? We're going to tape off zones. Everyone's going to have color-coded wristbands, all this kind of not fun stuff. And
so not rock and roll.
I know, right?
Here's your sheet of rules. Enjoy the show.
Yeah. And the mayor was like, yeah, let's do it. So we kind of threw it together in a few weeks, and it turned out okay, because what could go wrong with 100 people, really, right? So
it was fun. I ended up playing that, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Which is how we met.
Mm-hmm.
Now on the gig, so tell us about the lineup. There was 3 bands the first year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was the Beresfords, who are a local country duo. So I grew up with Brendan and Shannon, so I've known them since I was this tall. There's Evan's band, who is literally my best friend, and then there is Ed Jackson, who is my old science teacher from grade 7. And I knew that he like had a cover band with like other teachers that also used to teach me. And so I was like, yeah, you guys should come out because that's like all we really got in Aurora right now. And he was looking for a bassist, so I reached out to Brendan, and he's like, yeah, you got to hire Manny. And then like, sure enough, you came through. And
Yeah. Well, which is pretty cool that you called me.
Yeah.
I've never had that in my life.
Yeah,
Where the promoter.
calling the musicians. That's either like a deathly emergency.
Which it was.
It was because you started 3 weeks in advance.
No, it was like the only reason why a promoter would usually call the musicians is like, I can't really pay you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Ed was like, yeah, I'd love to, but Mr. Borg, who's an old teacher of mine, he's like, he's on a fishing trip this week, and I think he was the bassist.
Yeah.
And so he was like, so if you can find me a guy, I'll play. And I was like, well, what do I look like?
This is the
Don't try to
most.
sell 100 tickets.
This is the most Canadian thing I've
I know.
ever heard. My teacher was on a fishing trip, so he couldn't play bass.
Funny.
That's amazing.
But yeah, it was starting to play, and it was great, and they're such nice guys. But I remember showing up. I had a gig earlier, and then I showed up, and just the way that you guys had it all laid out, like there was little boxes, taped boxes. So if you bought 2 tickets, they tape out two seats for you.
Yeah.
And then they had the bleachers for some, and end up it was really weird because I've played that space a million times, and to see it so spread open for 100 people in that huge place, I was like, wow. So kudos on you for just sticking to your guns and doing it. Everybody had a wonderful time. I mean, the bands are great. Beresford's, I think it was a great night.
Yeah.
The energy was great, and it seemed like it was all your friends and parents, and
yeah.
I met so many parents. They were there, and
So it was a family.
It was.
It really was. Like, but looking at the ticket sales from the first year, it was like, these are all my best friends and their friends or family. Like,
Nice.
Everybody
there was
knew
no
each
strangers
other.
there.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well,
I was. I was such an outcast.
You were the outsider.
It was
Well,
nice.
mind
It
you,
was so
even
nice.
gigs you're playing at, you're usually the outsider. But that's cool. It's kind of like a block party. You know what
It
I
was
mean?
cool.
Pretty
I
much,
think so. Yeah, I think you guys had a ball, and then. To do it in that it was such a weird time because nobody was doing it. The festivals were all cut off. Everything was cut off. And then when we finally got the green light to do anything, people were just like 100 people. I'm not going to do it. And there wasn't enough time, apparently, to throw a festival. But Joel proved you all wrong. And I was glad to see you did a year 2.
Yes.
So let's talk about year 2. What are the restrictions there? Because we're still in restrictions.
Well, you kind of had this proof of the previous year to kind of back you up and the success of that.
Yeah.
So did that make it more difficult for you to try to live up to that, or was it something that was a little bit easier to the town?
Yes and no, just because like 100 tickets sold isn't anything to brag about. So like I was just kind of like, hey, that was nothing. Like this year is the real one. So
Right.
So capacity got opened up a bit. I think we sold 350 in second year. So it was a little bit better. We still had the zones taped off, but everyone was kind of loosening up at that point in COVID. It was like the end of the summer, and I think everything was kind of open.
Right.
At that point.
It was like
August,
quasi
yeah.
open.
Yeah, so no one like really followed the restrictions as well as I wanted them to. So like I was like abiding by the public health regulations and all this stuff, but then like halfway through the Beresford set, there was like a mosh pit, and I was like, oh shit! But
Nothing beats COVID like a mosh pit.
Okay, go listen to a Beresford song first of all, and
Again, I can't get more Canadian than this episode.
yeah, really.
country music, tight harmonies, tight band, and people are moshing to them. But that's how crazy it is.
I might need that beer.
Yeah, it's so crazy how like because now we're going to summer 3, right? And summer 1, people were all like really following the rules, and then like you said, like there's certain nights where people would snap at certain events.
Yeah.
In summer 2 of COVID, season 2 of COVID, that there was
Worst
stuff
TV
like
show ever.
that was like just keeps repeating. Nothing changes. And people like losing their minds on a random night. They're finally like, starting a mosh pit or really just,
Yeah.
and then I know, now like this is now what season 3 of lockdown, right?
Yeah.
And
Sort
and the
of.
bar,
Now
like,
even the
been kind of
government's
flipping
going,
and
fuck
flopping.
it.
Yeah.
Like
people are walking into the bar, they're showing their vaccine passport, they're wearing their mask, and after that first sip of beer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
even
their
our
on
government-
dancing. They're like, forget it.
even
Forget
our
it, I'm
government
done.
is like March 1st. You know what? We're done.
Yeah.
We're just gonna have to live with this.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right,
The
well,
Queen's got it at this moment.
Yeah.
She's fine.
And if she's surviving,
if she
it, then
survived,
I think
well,
anybody,
I don't know. That's a pretty
Yeah.
high threshold. She survived a lot.
yeah,
Like,
she's survived a lot.
she's
I mean,
not human.
No.
Can we say that? We're in
she's done
Canada. Can we-
she's done so much evil. So she must be
We broadcast to England.
not anymore. Anyways, look at the story. Just look at the story. So what happened? So Mosh Pit for Beresford.
Yeah.
Who played the second year?
So to open, we had Floral Park, who's
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah,
a
they're great.
New market band.
Yep.
Yeah, and like awesome dudes. And then we had Your Honey. They're like a R&B kind of vibey. It's like totally off genre from what I've done in the past,
Yeah.
which was good, and a lot of people liked it. Like my mom was a huge fan.
Well,
and
Julian
then-
Del Grosso was on guitar, and he's so
yes,
cute.
yeah,
He's adorable.
isn't he the best?
Hi, Julian.
I wouldn't say best, but
We ripped this kid apart so much. And the thing is, he's more successful than any of us.
he's in LA right now, and I'm so proud of him.
I know.
but
I've seen his Instagram
still-
stories. Like,
still smack him around.
I love him so much.
Oh.
He's stupid talented, and he's a good-hearted kid. you know?
Yeah.
I call him kid. He's only a couple years younger than me, but I mean, like,
But
he's the kid of the
he's
group.
Little.
You know,
He's a baby. He's a
considering all of our
baby.
friends are ancient like Manny. So.
Back in my day, we didn't talk about the Queen.
Back in my day, it wasn't a queen; we had a king.
Keep going.
yeah. So
I don't know why you keep
there's
stopping.
Your Honey. The Beresfords came back again, and then Yellow Magnolia again,
Yeah.
same as the last year, and then Cigar Club closed it out.
Oh yeah, Cigar Club. That's
They're like
right.
a
They
heavier
closed it.
kind of rocky blues kind of band. And
Did you know of Cigar Club or Floral Park beforehand?
Yeah, so another thing I do is 5-pin music, and we have them signed to our roster, if you will. So I've worked with them in the past, and just all about kind of like outsourcing local bands as much as possible, right? So they're top of my list, and yeah. But this year we're doing it a little bit different. We're doing submissions. So we had an
Nice.
we had an Instagram post,
Yeah.
and it's got like almost 1,000 comments now
Yeah.
of just local bands to kind of like help open my eyes up to like what else we got, right? Because
Yeah.
like I think the bands realize like because I've become friends with all the bands through the past 2 years,
Oh,
right?
for
So.
sure.
But they have to realize that they like I can't have the same lineup every year.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
So I kind of opened it up for submissions so I can like switch it up a little bit, but still like not like shaft anybody out, you know? So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's this really cool funk band called 411. I am absolutely not expecting that at all because I used to be that guy. I was in your shoes and like
that's a
I'd
hard-
sit in like a restaurant or something like that and hang out and they just recognize you because
Yeah.
they see your face in town.
Right.
And it's like, hey, can you get my band
Yeah,
on this?
I
And it's
get a
like,
lot of-
I haven't even heard your band.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
how much of that do you get? Are
Yeah,
you getting that a lot?
You must get a
nowadays?
lot of
especially
random
with
messages.
with that recent submission
Yeah.
post, yeah, there's like people like reaching out, sending me like 30-second clips of stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna need at least a Spotify song.
Yeah, something, right?
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So yeah, just to explain to people about that part of it, because that's actually a cool thing to
Yeah.
kind of dive into.
Yeah.
As a promoter, what tends to happen is exactly that. So you'll either put out submission, but back in the day, it was more like people have seen your face in town, the Don King of it all. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where they just recognize you for being a promoter.
Yeah.
And you get the weirdest sometimes requests for bands to play. You get the weirdest thing, and it is great. And like if you actually have your stuff put together, but there's sometimes where it's like,
Oh my god.
what are you giving me? It's like here's a cassette.
Here's my tape.
Yeah. So I found a lot of like when reaching out to these guys, a lot of promoters want live videos now, and
Yes.
because have you played live?
Well,
Let
they
me
want to see
you
the
play live,
package,
yeah.
and then envision that, just like cut and paste that onto their stage,
Exactly.
right?
Because it's really turning into a time with Spotify, like, you could put out anything on Spotify and you can make it really sound good, right?
Yeah,
Right.
The editing, you could literally play one bass note at a time, right? And then you're live, you can't even hold the bass.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like so weird. But it must be exciting to find new bands. Unfortunately, the really good bands probably don't ever reach out because they want to be reached out to.
Exactly.
It's such a weird
It's a bit of
thing.
an ego thing.
And then there's the beginning bands that are just so hungry that send off all these bad
I remember that
things.
hunger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks off in the distance.
when there's still a twinkle in the eye.
Yeah, but what some of the musicians that are like submitting their stuff don't realize is like you can be like a great hip hop artist, or for example, but like that's not going to fit a concert in the park.
Absolutely.
Right? So like my parents, for example, aren't going to want to come and watch like a rapper that is like doing SoundCloud tracks and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
as cool as that is,
right,
Yeah.
there's a time
It's
and
gotta
place.
fit.
There's
It's
a time
gotta
and place,
fit.
right?
Yeah, you got to look at the whole, you got to look at what you're applying for, right?
Yeah,
You're just like,
exactly.
you see the lineups of the past 2 years and you're just like, well, I mean, like my jazz fusion trio isn't going to try out for it.
Yeah, like,
right? Like,
it's just, it's got to make like logistical sense too,
Yeah,
where
right.
like, if you're dealing with a lot of electronics or tracks and stuff like that, you got to have the sound guy constantly
Well, that's
there to
another thing.
EQ.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if any sound guy really wants to sit there doing that when, bands can pretty well EQ themselves on stage, and the sound guy just
well, the
loves
first
their
year,
life.
the first year you had, you actually asked me, you're like, can you do sound too? Because I'm kind of scared, which was so funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because he was like, I got the gear,
So
but I
you
didn't have a
literally,
sound.
for the first
Oh,
year,
yeah.
just built your contacts.
Yeah.
Like you basically built your Rolodex of. I'm aging myself.
Yeah.
You built your Rolodex of contacts to be able to call on later on. But I mean, like, you pretty much went into this, not necessarily blind, but pretty blind.
Pretty blind.
Pretty blind, yeah.
I've got a couple friends that are in great bands, and we're just gonna throw a show.
That's
that's
incredible,
amazing.
dude.
And I think there's one thing guys do. Then they just like rent out a bar for a night or something, or talk to. But the fact that you're like, I'm gonna go bigger. Nothing's happening at this downtown park.
Yeah,
And I'll,
exactly.
like,
I have a vision for a stadium.
so it's pretty amazing. That was the main reason. I'm like, we gotta have Joel on because this is a hilarious story. Do you play?
No. So it's funny.
You are like a unicorn, dude. Like,
I know. I just couldn't believe how young you were, and I'm like, you're not. You're more out to rip off anybody. You're just like, I want my friends to play at a big place,
That's pretty
right?
much it,
And-
yeah.
you know, like I like it's old school. Like you're going the old school way about it. You're still integrating a lot of what is going on now, but your approach to it is such an old school way of doing it. Back in the day, where promoters were trusted people, they were so into it, and it was basically like their live or starve.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing, right? Your drive reminds me a lot of that, and I think that's something to definitely applaud. Because I can assure you with 100% sincerity, you are a goddamn unicorn.
yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, because you're not looking at your friends like, how can I make money off of them? There was none of that. You're just genuine fan, right? And it's like, it's so funny because like getting people to come out to concerts or your gigs now, even your friends, they always have like all the excuses not to come out, right?
Totally.
Right? And you're like, not only do I want to come out, I want to like throw the party. So that's pretty cool. And then like that first year, the restrictions were crazy because you had to hire people just to be restriction polices, right?
Yeah, luckily I got some volunteers. So when I went to Humber for music business, I stayed in touch with my prof, and he ended up just like dishing out the email to his class. So there's just people trying to get any type of experience. So I got I think it was 20 volunteers for no charge.
Yeah.
So it was great.
That's
and,
amazing.
Yeah,
man.
that's
and not only
amazing.
that, it's also like a networking thing for them, right? Like people in the industry, like
Yep.
local bands, all this stuff. So like
Honestly,
everyone's
you
kinda
might
meeting in a
you
room.
might be that guy coming up, especially in our area, but even in like the region, that you might be the new networking guy. You know what I mean?
I love it,
For-
yeah.
To do something
You
like
have
this.
a business sense, so it makes sense that.
But you're also a people person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's rare.
Likeable,
You
yeah.
you don't really get the best of both. You get somebody who's very business oriented, very focused, but a little bit antisocial in that way.
Right.
Doesn't really like dealing with people outside of their circle. And then you have people that are, very outgoing, but they're terrible at the business and they keep getting ripped off. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
again, unicorn.
Yeah. I have to say, like, it was nice when I played the first one. I was looking out at you, and you would be like, okay, you dealing with something, and then you'd be having a beer and then watching the band. Like, you really tried to enjoy the show, which is really hard for guys that, like our friend Leo with doing the stage and everything. He doesn't really have enough time to enjoy the show. And then when I play his shows, like, you meet the promoters and they're constantly running around. So it's nice, like, you actually are like, okay, like, I think you were front row for the Bears first at some points, right? Like, you keep coming up and then leaving, right? And that's amazing, right? Like, you need music lovers to put on music shows.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, like, the money will come from the ticket sales or whatever. Like, you're not in it for the money. You're in it for the love of putting people together and playing. So this year you're gonna have 1,000 submissions.
Yeah.
What are you getting help with like rifling through all that stuff?
Yeah, so luckily I have a team now, kind of.
He's got a team.
A few other people. So a girl, Carolyn, she's going into music business at Humber in September, and she kind of reached out to me being like, hey, I'm from Aurora, I'm also doing music business, if you need any help, let me know.
That's
so
amazing.
I'm like, all right, come on in. And then my sponsor guy from last year who helped reach out to get partnerships, sponsors and stuff, he's on board early. So like I was telling you guys before, it's nice to get the ball rolling ahead of time because the last 2 years has just been like scramble.
100%.
And now
man.
it's like, okay, we got 6 months to make this awesome. I got like a social media person on it, so we're like really trying to like blow it up this year.
Well, that was the thing where because you made that post, and then I was like, you got to be on our show, right?
Yes.
Because it's like January or whatever, February, beginning of February, already promoting it. I'm like, let's get on this. Let's have you on. Let's use this as a commercial for you too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So let me get this straight. You built this thing in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It went successfully for something that was under strict lockdowns.
Correct.
It went to year 2. Everything got better. You opened up the restrictions a little bit. Music got more intense. Sound got more intense. The responsibility got more intense.
Yes,
now we're going on to year 3, and you have goddamn interns.
Business guys.
I got lucky.
Yeah.
In 3 years. 2.5. Okay.
2 because he started
Okay.
Yeah.
like 3 weeks before.
If musicians had your ethic, we'd all be signed.
we all be so
We would own Newmarket.
Yeah.
That's really what we were taught in the music business program is like there's a lot of very talented people that just don't have the business drive in them, right? So I think more musicians need to hire people to do stuff like that.
Yeah, you're sitting beside 2 of them. Well, honestly, like Manny and I have been doing this, I mean, collectively over 50 years, right? And the business side, we've both dabbled in the business side of music. I was signed. Manny, you've played with signed artists. You've toured with people that were signed. There was just, and maybe it was our mindsets at the time. It was just it took away from what our jobs actually were.
Right.
We need people like you.
Yes.
To kind of like spearhead that.
Yeah.
Dude, your future is looking crazy.
Yeah.
It is looking crazy. Like I wouldn't be surprised by just by the state of trajectory that's happening to you right now. Year 4, you start managing bands. Like I can see that happening to you.
Yeah, and doing and just respecting them and. Like, I just feel like you have their intentions first.
Yeah. I'm trying not to be a suit.
Yeah.
As best as I can, right?
I don't think you have that bone in you.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I really don't think you have that bone.
A lot of people look at me immediately like that when I approach them for whether it's like 5-pin or Roarpalooza, whatever. they look at me as the suit right off the bat. So I kind of like to hop on a call with them, become friendly, be like, hey, I'm not a business douchebag.
Right.
I
mean,
So-
it's good to have the quality of a suit. In the technicality, yes,
Right.
you are the suit of the
right. That's
the
inevitable.
experience,
Yeah.
right? That's just because of the nature of it, right? But it's nice that one, you don't take yourself too seriously, which is very important because most of the business types do,
Right.
And they walk around with that chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
But and two, you're a genuine music lover. It's not necessarily just about the business part of it for you.
Yeah.
It's about like the state of what music is in right now and how you can actually make a difference in it. So we, as musicians here, actually owe a lot to people like you, and we're super stoked to have you on the show, man. This is
Thanks for
wicked.
having me. Yeah, this is awesome.
What's the angle of this year? Like, what kind of style of bands do you want? Or you want? I mean, technically, last year was all. There's 4 different styles.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So what are we looking at for this year? Your how many bands?
Probably similar. I'm thinking 4 this year. 5 was a bit hectic because doors were at 5, music started at 6, and we had to shut down by 11.
You don't want to start earlier, or
I would like to, but the farmers market. Yeah, that's so annoying. I know. I wish I had the whole day, and then I could do like 10 bands. But
Well, hey, Aurora. Listen here. Okay. I think that there's potential here to become like the almost Woodstockian kind of thing, where this could be a weekend.
Yeah,
you know,
that's what I thought.
Totally.
I thought
Once
you were
you
going.
asked me,
Yeah,
yeah.
I thought you might have do 2 days
once
in a row.
once things like people aren't so trigger shy with like the restrictions lifting completely, there's going to be people that won't know what to do in public, like how to human basically.
Well,
And
we've seen that this weekend.
yeah.
We forgot how to humor.
Yeah. So, but I think by August, we're so looking forward to summer because now we have something to look forward to in summer. Whereas last summers it was like
Everybody
weird.
I
No,
talked
yeah.
to, I can't wait for summer. I can't wait.
Yeah,
for summer.
we're gonna be
Everybody.
busy, dude.
Yeah,
we're gonna be
and
very busy.
Yeah,
but
we'll be running gig to gig.
I think if Aurora, the whole town, if you're listening,
Mr. Aurora.
Mr. Senior
Queen
Aurora Esquire, please don't like tie this young man's hands down. He's gonna make a huge difference. You're gonna make a huge difference not only in that town but like in the face of like bringing back the festival, but proper festival atmosphere.
so I kind of have a solution. Like
there we go.
kind of. It doesn't solve it completely.
Do we screw the people over and go on break now and make them wait? no, go for it.
I don't think we're that cool.
So the purpose of Aurora Palooza was always to support local.
Yeah.
So what I was kind of thinking is, that little stretch at Yonge and Wellington. I don't know if you guys know Aurora much.
I do.
So where there's Oshucks, there's all these like little bars.
Yep.
So what I was kind of thinking is like a mini pub crawl. So there's like acoustic sets during the day because restaurants aren't busy from 1 to 5 usually. That's like their kind of dead time.
Yeah.
So I bring people in. There's like a little Aurora Palooza acoustic set. They get a free drink, free app, whatever, and then they walk to Town Park. So it's like 200 meters away.
Oh, that's so cool. Yes, you start it that way.
Yeah, so
and you
that's what
get
I
more
wanna do.
bands, more smaller, so you
Exactly.
could have like, having the Bears first back, you probably won't, maybe because it's like 2 years, right?
Right.
So, but now you could throw them in a bar.
Yeah,
Aha,
exactly.
and then
Bring people in.
bring them in.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
Yeah, me and Dan. could
I've
play at one
got
of them.
I've got things going through my grandparents live in Aurora, and so I basically grew up there.
Nice.
More on the cusp of Oak Ridges, but I mean, we were in Aurora constantly growing up, and Aurora is one of those towns that you're. At least when I was growing up, you're passing through. You're either a lifer or you're passing through, trying to get from one town to the other, right?
Yeah.
404 is right there, and like you're basically on your way to Vaughan, passing through Aurora.
Right.
And this is something that Aurora used to do a lot of cool things back in the day. They did. They tried. Yeah. I mean, the birth of like their main street, the downtown area was something that was really great for them. Mm-hmm. But then they didn't really do anything with it. There's no like street parades or anything like that happened. There's no. There's no real thing for the townies to look forward to.
It's really hard to. I mean, it'd be great to close down.
Young Street.
Yeah.
But like you said, people are going, Young and Wellington would be really, but you can't, right?
Those are
Like,
the two streets
Well,
that people go on.
yeah.
Now you can. Think about all the ways to get north and south now, right?
True.
So you don't need to take Young all the way up. In fact,
do it
that's
for
the
their Santa
stupidest
Claus
thing to
parade,
do.
yeah.
The stupidest thing to do is take Young anywhere.
It's true.
So if you shut down Young Street, you have Keele, you have Bathurst, you have everywhere else that you can go now. Whereas back then, no, it was it was all dirt roads, right? So this is actually a really cool possibility for you because you're going to get a lot of foot traffic, which is exactly what the bars want. They don't want drive-by traffic because it's like, oh, there it is. Okay, bye. You're going to get a lot of foot traffic for the bars, so they're going to love you up.
Yeah.
You're going to get more musicians of the acoustic and solo, duo, trio quality.
Yeah.
You're going to get a bunch of people who are going to come from out of town to come to your thing. Like, this is, like, it can only go up, dude. It can only go up.
I'm hoping so, yeah. It's just that fucking farmer's market.
yeah.
Well, maybe there's a way to integrate it. Don't you think there might be a way? Like,
I've always
there can
wanted
be
to
your
do
vendors.
even an acoustic set, like, during the farmer's market. Like, the band shell's wide open, that whole space is open, and the farmer's market's on the path going through. So it's like, there's still that space wide open, but the permits overlap, and you got to go through bylaw or something.
are hard.
So,
There's
Permits are hard.
yeah.
Okay, if you're working with the town, right? The permits, I mean,
It's all up to them. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, they set the ground rules, right?
100%,
So, like, they can say whether or not it's overlapping.
Right.
So, if there's a way to integrate it where the farmer, and I don't know why I'm doing this on air, but like, but like maybe somebody can hear and like leave a comment or something if there's like a more strategic solution to this. But like, isn't there a way to make the farmers market like the official vendors of the event where they're providing the food and like whatever they
They
provide?
should get more business, like at least,
killer
have
business.
lunch
It
there.
works out for everybody.
A lot of, there's been so many years of, the one thing I find with COVID is like, and you even said it, right? You want support local, right? Because we were just taken off from everything. Nobody was doing anything local.
You're right.
We didn't care about nothing.
Yeah, we just left. All
We'll
of us left
bring
town.
bands in from over there or from about everything, right? So this community idea and making and integrating things together that might not sound right on paper, but let's try it.
Yeah. Well, Hamilton did it. Like, Hamilton went, like, that was the place that you never really went. They hired everybody from out of town and everything like that to do their gigs. And then all of a sudden they started doing more events. They cleaned it up quite a bit. Yeah. And now all the musicians are moving to Hamilton.
Wow.
Like, it's one of those things.
It's happening.
Like, after I graduated Humber,
a lot of people,
they just dipped to Hamilton.
Really?
And
couldn't afford anywhere else, right?
They're gigging constantly.
Yeah. And you just, you could get into the city
Pretty easy.
pretty easy,
Yeah.
with, but it's very trafficy. But
Yeah.
well, we were talking about this yesterday, where there's no venue and stuff in Newmarket. Like, you see these small tours of smaller, and I used Matt Anderson as an example because I was like, whoa, you're playing Oshawa, you're playing Ajax, or what? You're playing like everywhere, and nobody goes north of 7. Or not even Woodbridge on top of it all. Like, it's like they do the 401 tour.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't even play in Toronto, which is hilarious, right? Because Toronto's so like.
Well,
Toronto,
think about it.
Toronto's-
Is it that odd?
No, it's not. But, we'll do a whole episode.
Toronto's
Toronto's
lost its buck,
we'll need
man.
way more beer than that, and it's crazy. So we need something up here to bring, so that Matt Anderson will want to come and do a show here, because I know we're all fans. Like, everybody will,
He would kill it.
and he would,
He would kill it.
So we need the small venues, but we need to be, when we're turning into more of a music. Aurora Newmarket's turning way more music. Like, there's, Main Street's starting to kill it on. Aurora Aurora's funny because they have the Greystones.
Yeah.
They have the Oshags.
Yeah.
And everything else that kind of tries to open around there, it doesn't really musically successfully work.
Doesn't work.
They try to throw you in there, and then they're closed. I
Many
don't know what it
places
is.
have opened up and shut down in the last 10 years.
Fast.
But the cool thing about it is, I think that there's opportunity for what's already established there. And it's just a matter of being creative. And we've got a guy here who's got the creativity coursing through him. Let's take a break.
Yeah.
We'll
So
come
you
back. We'll do On This Day. and we'll talk about something that I just found out Joel's very passionate about.
Ooh, this is exciting.
All right,
Stay
we'll be right
tuned.
back. Hey guys, Daniel here from Behind the Hooks. Just wanted to take this time to let you know about Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout is who we use here on our show to distribute our show to all the platforms that we can, Spotify and all that fun stuff. Follow the link in the description and the show notes, and it gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and it helps support our show, which is pretty great. That would be nice. We use it. It's been nothing but great. It's super easy to use. The customer support and the help that I've gotten because I am tech dumb has been nothing but incredible. If you want to upgrade, Buzzsprout has tons of guides to help you find the right equipment at the right place. Just start with some gear, a quiet place, and you can literally upload a podcast from anywhere. You'll get real great looking podcasts because of the website. The website is super sleek and it's really nice. It's nice to have a hub for people to go to if they just want to listen to your show. It's not hard if you have the right partners. The team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. I've experienced this firsthand. We had a previous show that I didn't have access to, and I was worried about it kind of convoluting the market a little bit. So the fact that we can run side by side is absolutely amazing. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Your message is important, and Buzzsprout is here to help you get it out there. We use it, we love it, and we know that you guys will love it too. So, like I said, there's some incentives behind it. Go ahead and check out the link that I'm going to be putting in the description and the show notes. Now, let's get back to the show. On this day in music history. As I move the table. What's up? So we picked one especially for Joel today, because on this day in 1967, Pink Floyd started their first sessions at the EMI Studios, St. John's Wood, in London, on their debut album, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, working on their song Matilda Mother, while Pink Floyd were recording their album with the former Beatles engineer Norman Smith. The Beatles themselves were working in the studio next door. That's a conversation I would love to be a fly on the wall for, right? They were working on Fixing a Hole for their Sgt. Pepper's album, and Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees attending the mixing session that same day.
Interesting day that was.
What a weird day. I mean, okay, so I can kind of get the Beatles and Pink Floyd hanging out.
Yeah.
I can kind of get that. Yeah. They're around the same time. I mean, when Joe, you might know this. When was Pink Floyd established? Like, when did they start? When did they become the Pink Floyd that we know? Was the 60s, right?
66,
I think,
65,
yeah.
maybe.
So they would get the Beatles transition, because the Beatles were transitioning at that time.
The cool thing was Floyd probably helped with the Beatles transition.
100%.
Right?
100%. Well, just listen. Listen to Sgt. Pepper's and tell me that Pink Floyd didn't have an influence on
Yeah,
that.
seriously. Yeah.
There was that whole underground scene that was happening in London that was so friggin' experimental.
It was so weird.
Well, all the Americans went there and came back as imports.
Yeah.
We talked about Jimi
Yeah.
Hendrix. He did that.
He
You know what I
did
mean? Like, it was the cool thing to do back then, to have that European.
There'd be no New York without London.
100%. Are you
right?
kidding?
They jumped on that. What a time to be alive, man! Like,
Yeah.
because they did. It was all about the show. So they'd be playing like a little warehouse,
Yeah.
but they'd have the light show going on. They'd have like they'd throw in a system in there, and they would, you know, I mean, it's all new. Rock and roll was still new.
Well, they still didn't have the proper like PA setups back in 66, 67. Actually, throughout all the 60s, they didn't have anything remotely. The audience was ready for what it then became and what it still is now, but the sound system wasn't.
The sound system.
And the
wasn't.
early Floyd stuff was so weird because it was like Syd Barrett and shit, like banging on guitars and like making all these random noises. A lot of people say that Pink Floyd may have started electronic music back then.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because it was so experimental. What Syd Barrett saw as a live show was essentially like the first rave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
well, they
it was
called
all
it a
these-
rave. That's where the name came out.
Yeah.
Rave. The word rave came out from that
Oh, I
era.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
there's a live VHS thing, right? And they had a song called "Rave On" or something.
That term has been
term,
around for
they started that
decades.
term. That if not them, at least the promoters, right at that time.
Well, if you think of listen to even just listen to "Comfortably Numb," right? It sounds like a fever dream. Yeah. Like,
Totally.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I'm a huge Floyd fan. I freaking loved him. I love Sid. I'll listen to his albums, his solo albums, and people can't get through them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The word genius is always weird to throw around, but he definitely heard hooks and music and man, I forgot what my thought was with all this, but keep
drinking, Manny. You're fine.
So the funny thing is, I heard someone call Floyd after Syd Barrett. They riding the coattails of Syd Barrett and riding the coattails of Roger Waters' dead dad. Yeah. And if it wasn't for Roger Waters' dad or Syd Barrett, like they'd have nothing to write about.
Yeah, it's true. There'd be no "Wish You Were Here." There'd be no "The Wall." There'd be no. Well, I guess "Animals" was kind of conceptual, but other than that, like, it's all about Sid one way or another. In
one way or another, and and I don't think they would have played that way if it wasn't for Sid, right? Like, I mean, even though the scene was happening, and they were the only band to keep going from that, because all those bands at that time that were playing shows with filtered off, and probably the drugs. I mean, they were way too into it. I mean, it was brand new and legal,
right?
Right, LSD was legal.
Yeah,
they had to make it illegal in whatever 69 or something, because it was like, whoa. Too many
what
people
is going
dropping.
on?
Yeah.
There's too much changing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like, if anything, I mean, I don't know. I kind of play devil's advocate a lot, especially on this show, where I don't side for or against certain things just because I want people to make up their minds for themselves. But in respect to that era, when people were doing all of these mind enlightening drugs. You now have the birth of the civil rights movement. You have the birth of music evolution. You have the birth of political evolution. If anything, people were starting to figure out, like, shit's real and we can make a difference.
We can make a change. That's what. Yeah.
So 69. I mean, especially like the Vietnam War was going on, and everybody was doing their Pleasantville kind of life and everything like that. And then they started started opening their minds a little bit, becoming woke.
Nobody
was really happened first time back then.
That was true. Yeah.
Nobody argued with the war prior to Nam. Everybody started reading up on Nam.
World War II was all hurrah kind of thing, and then Vietnam happened, and they spat on the soldiers when they came home. Yeah. And that was not fair to the soldiers.
No, they don't deserve it.
I still see, if I see a Vietnam vet, I tell him welcome home.
Yeah.
100%.
Well,
it's not their say that they even go most of the time, right?
No.
So. Man. Well, I mean, they were coming to Canada, right? Rick James. Rick James came to Canada. He said, screw it.
Yeah.
Go to Yorkville.
Exactly. So,
but also the instruments, right? They were inventing the wah, they were inventing distortion or pedals, and so that really helped with the drums.
But isn't that annoying though? Because they invented all this cool gear, and then couldn't play it through a proper sound system.
Yeah. We still had your amps. Your amps were pretty loud.
The amps were loud, and then they'd stack them, and you blow a house down with that, but. I want to go back to Pink Floyd for a sec, because I don't think people understand how much of a fan Joel is. If you show your arm.
Show your arm. I had no idea either.
That's wicked, man.
Yeah, it's a funny story, actually. So if you look really closely, underneath, there's other pictures.
Yeah.
So it started out with the pig, the dog, and the sheep. And that was like the theme of the Animals album, is there's three types of people in the world. There's the dogs, there's the go-getters, there's the sheep who do what they're told, and then there's the pigs who are like the greedy politicians.
Gluttonous.
Still relevant.
The capitalist bastards. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
It's crazy.
So I started out with that concept, and then these two turned out shitty.
Tattoos, man.
So I ended up just getting the whole album to cover it up, and it actually has a decent story behind it now. So.
Yeah, man, that's wicked. So what makes a Pink Floyd fan? I mean, okay, drugs is, put that aside for a sec. Like, what is it musically that makes a Pink Floyd fan? Explain it to me like you're trying to convince me to get on Floyd.
I just don't think there has ever been a band like Pink Floyd before or after them. they take influences from different things, yes, and I'm sure other bands have been influenced by them, but like the sound of David Gilmour's guitar, like you can't replicate that almost. Like a lot of people say like, yeah, Hendrix is the best guitarist. There's Clapton's. There's like the different shredders, but like the
They're
sound,
good in their own genres, in their own field. But
they're in their own genre.
Is it safe to say that Pink Floyd created a genre then, in that sense? Like they were the forefathers.
I know it's psychedelic rock.
Yeah, I know.
Like
it got thrown into psychedelic.
I think it's
rock.
deeper than that.
It is because they lasted so long.
Yeah, and
right?
like just their concept albums, how it's all one big song, is what really resonates with me. Like The Wall, I've listened to front to back like hundreds of times, and it's just like the stories behind it. If you research like every little hidden meaning, whether it's the film or the album itself, like there's so many conceptual kind of like reasons to everything, whether it's like you said, Roger Waters' dad mixed in with Pink Floyd, mixed in with their like rock star persona, mixed in like it's just like brilliant stuff. And like I've spent a lot of time just reading into it and learning about it because it's so interesting to me.
That's
and then
wicked.
When I saw Roger Waters I went to Desert Trip. Did you hear
did you go there?
Yeah, so I went to Desert Trip, and that was just like the best show I've ever seen because the sound was perfect. There was speakers all over the place. Like when Dogs was playing, there was like dogs circling me basically, and like
it's an experience.
The sound was wicked, like, and it was just like the best show ever. Like in the California desert, like there was like the moon going down, and like it was just.
They do have the coolest media wall production that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like their sense of the whole production experience is just far beyond what anybody's ever done.
Well, they became a stadium band.
Yeah.
But not playing stadium music. When
Yeah.
you think of stadium rock, you're thinking of like a Foreigner or
Right.
something, right? But they were doing stadiums because it was a whole thing. It was
Yeah.
a whole,
They were like Cirque du Soleil for your
Yeah.
It was
ears.
a theater,
Exactly.
yeah. It was theatrical, yeah.
right? And they were all, because they all were art school kids.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
Right? Like, and it was like, it's just the beginning days are just such a wonderful time
Yeah.
of like and they were all smart.
Yeah.
Everybody was educated. Right now, like, you're like, that Tommy Lee doesn't read a book, right? And
Right.
stuff, right? But back then, like, like they were all really smart
It's true art.
people, and they dabbled in all the art. They didn't just smash drums and whatever, right?
Yeah.
So from a music business side of things then, right? Because I don't imagine Pink Floyd would have been the easiest band to promote back then.
No, which is why they had to get rid of Sid. And
So yeah, so thinking about it, I mean, like for those people who have seen Bohemian Rhapsody and what Queen had to go through to get Bohemian Rhapsody on the radio, Pink Floyd doesn't stem too far away from that logic of how is this going to be radio play? How is this going to be heavy rotation? Back in the days of like payola, it didn't matter how much money you paid them. DJs did not want to play songs that were going to be over a certain threshold of time or kill a mood of a certain day of the week or a certain production or roster that they had lined up. So from a business standpoint, thinking about what was going on back then, how people were internalizing music, and the success of bands like Pink Floyd and then into psychedelic rock and even theatrical rock that kind of spanned two new genres at that time. How did they get big?
That's an interesting point, and I've never really thought about it, but I think the main point here is the concept of the album and how vinyl was so important back then. And like the first person that put on Dark Side of the Moon was probably a big stoner, like in, what was it, 73 or 72?
Yeah.
So like just like hearing that front to back, I think was very important for their success. And I don't know if they gave a shit about radio. Like,
oh yeah, bands like that definitely wouldn't.
You know what I mean?
Would
Like,
not give a shit about
Because
radio.
you're selling out stadiums and everything. Like, it's a different time now. You need to be on the radio to sell out.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's such a weird thing, but with them, it was you put down that needle and you had to listen to the whole side.
Yeah.
And there's elements in every album where, I think in Animal is just this acoustic guitar that's just in it the whole time.
Haunting, yeah.
You hear it like, and then it kind of disappears, and it's like so much work put into that. It's amazing, right? And gone are the albums now with the Spotify's. And
I think it was also one of, maybe not the first, but one of the first albums, Dark Side of the Moon, that utilized the stereo instead of mono.
Yes.
When it went from side to side, and if you listen to it in headphones, you're like fucking rotating.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, like music production wise, there were some cop out elements of that earlier on in the 60s.
Right.
I think Frankie Valli in the he was still with the Four Seasons when he did Sherry. It was one of the first time that they did layering in stereo. So you're getting like basically the same melody line, but in stereo. So it sounds like two people are singing in unison in your ear.
Right.
But they didn't really that was already the experimentational part of it. They didn't really dive that far into it until much later, probably until like the Beatles came around and they started doing harmonies in stereo. But yeah, Pink Floyd found a way to utilize all the senses while listening, and like so you have that sense of surrounding, like the music actually engulfing you, which was a very interesting production technique. I'd love to get into that someday, just the production technique of what like stereo sound has the capability of doing. It's very interesting, and Pink Floyd would be spoken about very often in that episode for sure.
Yeah.
I remember, and I talked about this once on the show before, I worked for a music distro company, and we distributed vinyl CDs, cassettes to like HMVs and Sunrise Records and stuff like that all over the country. And the most requested albums, two. I'll name the first three because Pink Floyd is two of them. Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall were, because they at the time they had just come out with the 180 gram. It was the anniversary edition of the records. But even if they weren't, like we sold out of those constantly. We were constantly contacting the labels and being like, send us more products, send us more. We're getting requests. We need like 6,000 more copies. Like it just didn't stop. So yeah, it was Dark Side of the Moon was number 1, The Wall was number 2, and Revolver was number 3.
That was a big album.
Yeah.
So, it just, and that was, you're talking 2016.
Well, if you ask a lot, if you ask a lot of people, you're like, well, if you don't only own one vinyl copy, that's where that would make sense, right? Because those were the first ones people were buying back up when they were trying to redo their record collection.
Yeah,
right?
2014, 2015, the rebirth of vinyl was really on a surge.
Yeah.
And I think that people were diving back into their childhood and rebuilding their old record collections or updating them at least, and that's what
better
we got.
stereo systems, better. Right now, you're like, whoa, like.
Well, I have one right there. It's a 4-in-1. It's a record player, CD player, radio, cassette player, Bluetooth, and you have your own little entertainment corner that you can have in your house.
Yeah,
they sound so good,
man. Pink Floyd. Anyway, let's
go
back to what you're here for.
Yes.
So you're starting. I guess not. The promotion is. I know promoting this thing is year round because you're already thinking of concepts by New Year's Eve. You know what I mean? Or even the day after the shows, right?
Day after
What can
the
we
show,
do better?
What can we do better?
The day after the shows, you have that meeting. You get together and it's like, okay, what can we do? What worked? What didn't work? Right. So explain to us and to the 4 people listening. Hi, Mom. No, but we get a lot of questions. So, I get questions at least, when I'm hanging out with people. It's like, oh, you should talk about this side of the industry, or you should talk about, what goes on behind the scenes of like a festival or gigs, and like what happens backstage. So I know with COVID, it changed some things about backstage etiquettes and everything like that, because, you can't be all crammed and everything. But in your experience, had you done any of the backstage organizing or anything like that prior to Aurorapalooza?
No.
So what was that like for you the first time?
Did you realize
Organizing
how
the
many
bands.
people you had to call to
It's
put
like
on
herding
something?
sheep.
Yeah, no, it really is. So I got lucky with a sound guy, Connor Wright. He helped produce a lot of Yellow Magnolia stuff. So I kind of knew him through Evan and them. So the first year, I basically I was like, okay, so what do we need? When I walked into the arts, I was like, this is the venue, and Brendan kind of walked me through it mostly. But the second year, I basically gave Connor the credit card, and I was like, this is your job now. So,
Right.
I mean, it's not that complicated for such a small concert in the park. You just need a couple PAs, a few monitors, and I don't know, whatever else, right? So it wasn't that crazy, but it was a learning experience for sure. And like something I kind of want to dive into this year is like more light show kind of thing. Maybe not anything too intense, but more of like a stage presence instead of just like a platform that people play instruments
That's
on.
the hard part about
We have a
the
friend.
horror thing. Yeah, we do.
We can get Leo there.
Oh yeah, we could do a whole back screen.
You do the whole
thing.
back line.
Yeah,
whole
I'd be
thing.
into that. Something we're looking into.
Hi, Leo.
So then you also had vendors there.
Yeah.
So how do you get the vendors? You
Yeah,
just
so-
reach out.
Yeah, so I was looking at local food trucks. Once again, I was trying to stay local as possible. So Casalingo Burger,
Nice.
I think they
So
were
good.
on Industrial at the time, maybe at the dealership or something.
Oh, okay.
I'm not exactly sure, but I reached out to them at that point. Like I said, I was trying to throw everything together. So anyone that was willing, I would let in. So the first year they came, barely sold anything because it was only 100 people.
Yeah.
But then last year, I guess maybe I didn't tell them how many people were coming compared, but they sold out at like 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's great for them, but
but,
like
yeah.
it's
It's,
also
it's a nightmare for you, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
how cool is that?
Yeah,
You
it was-
sold out a food truck. That's awesome. They don't have to know how much they prepared for. They just have to know they sold out a food
Yeah,
truck.
that's it.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So we're doing submissions for that now too. Actually, the post probably went out during the show. Social media ladies on it, but we're doing submissions. I kind of want tacos this year.
Good call.
You feel
Tacos
taco?
Tacos
Feeling
are
August
easy.
is a good taco month.
Taco month. That is a good taco month, man.
Yeah, I think I want Mexican and then I don't know something else. But so my vision with Aurora Palooza is I want it to be a food, art, and music festival. I don't want it to just be a concert.
Sure.
So like down the road when everything's wide open, first off a bigger venue probably, but I want like a dozen food vendors and like a dozen visual artists like painters or whatever selling their stuff, and then music's on the side, not on the side, but music, like it all kind of comes in tandem with each other.
It's
right?
very
so
Sacramento of you. That's actually kind of neat. That's more San Francisco, actually.
Yeah.
San Francisco, they're really good at doing food, art, and music festivals. So that would be actually a really cool. And Aurora would actually be the perfect place for that because it's a very eclectic crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Because they'll go to
surrounds that area.
Hillside.
Yeah.
And they'll go to, like all that. So just bring it to them.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, man.
100%. I think it's a good market for it. Good demographic.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to something that you said in passing while giving us that spiel, where you handed the credit card. Did you foot the bill for the entire thing?
Yeah, that was on me.
Promoters don't do that either.
Yeah, well, I just kind of like at Humber we did one class on how to make a concert.
Right.
So
And I slept in that day.
So I was trying to think back to that one class, and I basically just like put a spreadsheet together, like, okay, this is going to cost this much. I had to raise the limit on the credit card a little bit.
Sure.
And then I just kind of figured out the numbers, and the goal first year was just to break even.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's a success, I think, in most people's eyes.
Especially when you
Yeah.
have only 100
With 100 people,
to-
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, the goal is to break even, and then anything on top is just a bonus, and it worked out well. So, and then the second year I had to raise the credit card limit again.
Yeah.
But
I mean, at what point is sponsorship a thing for you? Like,
Well, that's
do you
what
trust that?
That's what we're focusing on this year.
Okay.
And that's what I have my team working on right now is partnerships, sponsorships, because there's a lot of real estate in that park to like put up banners and marketing and all this kind of stuff. And if someone wants to throw in a few $100 or a couple $1,000 to have like their company presents Aurora Palooza, that's fine with me because that's just like money that I don't have to front, right, and risk.
So I'm making a PSA right now to I'm not going to include TD because they have the jazz festival. It's like they I don't know if they'll get
They got lots of
involved.
money. They literally have all the money.
But
They're a band.
BMO, CIBC, you ain't doing shit. Like I don't see you on any sponsorships.
Yeah,
Get
it's
your
always
foot-
TD. You know, that's something interesting, right?
It is always TD.
There's always TD.
At least here, like the jazz festivals or any of the larger concert festivals, TD is involved with. It's nice to have a bank backing you, but you don't want the bank kind of looming.
Yeah.
But if you want keeping it
Smoke
local
sponsorship. Let's bring it back. Demore, man. Poor guys, man. They were part of everything. Started smoking because I was watching the indie. Like, what's this Demore you speak of?
It's brilliant.
I do agree with the local mindset where you can it doesn't even have to be so much a financial sponsorship is very important. Those diamond sponsors that you get that actually foot money.
The more money you get, the more
even,
bands you can get.
But even like vendor sponsors, venue sponsors, gear sponsors, just somebody to like that. I know how much of a headache that would take away.
Yeah.
If somebody would be like, this is our sponsorship. This is how we're gonna help you out. If you can't do the money, at least do something like that. That's also very, very helpful. But the money is very important. So reaching out, Aurora, this is going to change the township in entirety, and it's going to change the face of music in the region.
Yeah.
And I think that if you get on this now on the third installment, it's early in the game, you will reap the rewards for your involvement,
because you're gonna have 5 months of your name
everywhere,
and the whole day. So the name, every time I hear a Palooza, I'm like, did you just not come up with any other options?
He had 3 weeks, dude.
I love adding Palooza on the end of anything. But what was were you trying to come up with a name, or was just like, oh, we don't have a name? I have 3 bands. I have a venue.
That was pretty much it. I was like, Lollapalooza's cool. We can turn it into
Dude, if I can make a suggestion, if you haven't already, trademark it before Magna does.
Yeah.
And then I found out Gussapalooza's been going on for years. I only found that out last year. I was like, shit.
Sorry. We're actually going to have Russ on the show, so we'll bug him about. That's hilarious, because I was wondering if you knew about that.
No.
No.
I went to Gussapalooza last year. It was a hell of a time. It was awesome. But I shook his hand. I'm like, hey, I'm a Aurora Palooza guy. I'm not ripping your shit off.
That's funny.
Just didn't really have the internet back then.
2021.
Back in my day.
So
it was a year ago.
Do you make enough money on Aurora Palooza that you could take the rest of the year off?
No.
So
not even a
what
month
else
off.
do
You
you
just
do?
heard him say he foots the bill, man.
That was my segue. You know I'm king of segue. So what do you... May not be the best king. So what else do you do other than get high and listen to Floyd? Apparently. I had no idea. I love Floyd. I'm like, what is this? Really?
No, I do quite a few things. So my day job, I work at In Tandem Music Licensing, Resound SoCan company that essentially makes using music for businesses easier, licensing wise. So that's my non-fun job, but that's what pays the bills. And then I got 5-Pin Music, which is a sync representation company. We basically work with music supervisors, creative directors, people that put music into stuff. And then we work with our artists in order to get their stuff placed, and then we take a cut off the top if that works out.
Nice.
So we got placed in the Osmos commercial that you might have seen. It was actually the second most played commercial in North America.
Are you serious? I've seen that commercial.
Yeah, so that was our song from something that one of my bosses owned from back in the day, a Junior Cole song. So yeah, I do that on the side, and then there's this as well. What else was? Oh, and then I music supervise films a little bit on the side. I've done a few
So you've been on both sides, because music supervisors often go to publishing companies or sync or licensing companies to kind of cherry pick their roster.
Yeah.
So music supervising and music syncing. So for those of you that don't know this side of music, can you explain to the people what a sync licensing corporation is?
Yeah, so every time music gets played in a piece of media, it needs to be licensed, obviously. So whether that's a video game, a film, a commercial, an advertisement, a TV show, whatever, if a song gets played, someone's getting paid for it one way or another. So what you do at a sync representation company is you build your relationships with the music supervisors and people that have that say. And we actually have one of the biggest catalogs independently in North America. Like, we don't compete with the Universals and Sonys and Warners, obviously.
Right.
But we have about 6,000 songs, which is like bigger than most independent houses.
You don't hear that at all.
Like ever, right?
Never.
So that's like our advantage is we have a shit ton of stuff. Most of it's Canadian for the most part, but we have an agent in Chicago that kind of runs stuff too. And our niche is the weird. We call ourselves the weird and the wonderful.
Nice.
So we have like weird psychedelic stuff, mostly Canadian 60s, 70s, like bands like 49th Parallel and just like these random bands that most people haven't heard of, but their music is pretty much not being used at all for the most part. So our job is to
get it out there.
Right? So that's where that
That's
works.
fun.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
So at Humber, I had an internship with Pacemaker Entertainment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Pacemaker Entertainment is the label that owns the stuff that I was just talking about, run by Peter Burnside. And he kind of planted the seed with me, being like, hey, like, we have this stuff, like, maybe you should start your own publishing house, sync house kind of thing. That's where the money is with this stuff. And then 1 year later, Mike Campea came along, another intern for the same label, and he was kind of the brains of the project and was like, okay, let's actually do this.
Right.
So us three kind of started 5-Pin Music, and Mike is the one that made it happen because I was working full-time and doing other stuff on the side and stuff. So he's the guy that like really put it all together, put all the stuff in a Google Drive. We talked to lawyers, got the contracts like laid out and all that stuff. So he's the one that made it happen, but it's kind of us three, and then we recently brought on another guy, Noah, that we kind of work that together. And it's a slow process because you need to build relationships with the supervisors.
Yes.
And we're getting in the right rooms, and we're getting a lot of briefs that they call it. Basically, like, we need this type of song. What do you got? So that business is picking up, but actually getting the placements has been a bit slow because it's like I said, it's a very thorough. You got to get in with the young supervisors that end up having more say when they're older, right?
Yeah.
So that could be a multi-year process.
Yeah, no, it's like a
Wayne
going into a growing company. Kind
Exactly,
of thing.
yeah.
So for those of you that don't know, at the end of your TV or movie, stick around for the credits and actually look for the music supervisor. There's a music supervisor on every film, every television. Anything that has music incorporated in it. In this show, Manny and I are the music supervisors. Yeah. So, but in other shows, there's usually like telltale names. That's kind of like who Hans Zimmer is for the composition of movies. There are Hans Zimmer level music supervisors for film and television.
Yeah.
And what they do is they curate the music for that for either that specific episode or for that specific movie, and their job is going to people like Joel.
Yeah.
And finding those curations and making sure that it fits with the mood, theme, and atmosphere of the film or television show. So you kind of got to have an ear.
You got to have an ear and love, right? Like, I find movies, the music just makes it better. Well, I mean,
100%.
Go back to the Floyd. They were getting hired to do background where they would just watch the film and play along. Movie More and a few others. So there's that aspect where like back then they were like trying everything. Like, we'll just set them up in the studio, play the movie, and play. But now, like, I watched that Melissa McCarthy movie last night, where I forget what it's called.
You watch more movies than I do.
Yeah,
That's crazy. How are you busier than me and still have time to watch movies?
that's how I end my night. Yeah, I guess. And it was that funny movie. It was her and Susan Sarandon, but the songs they picked, right? And then they were like, there's a part where Susan Sarandon is the grandmother and she slept with Dwayne Allman, and then Melissa McCarthy's like, oh, you slept with the wrong Allman, right? And I'm like, that's the right Allman. And then they start singing like Midnight Rider, and then she's like teaching. She's like, no, like, you got to go down, but not too much chin. And she's lifting her chin up, and then they drive off, and then they play Midnight Rider, right? And there's just a couple songs that were just so perfectly put into this comedy / whatever drom-com movie.
That's what really got me into, like, that's why I took music businesses, because like I had that like passion for that. Like, when you see movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, and you're just like, how the fuck did they get all these songs in the same film? And have you guys seen Cruella? that was like the most wicked soundtrack, and it's just movies like that that really like resonated with me, and I was like, someone's got to be in charge of this.
Yeah. Who's putting these cool songs together?
Like you start thinking about like your favorite like soundtracks. Like think of your favorite shows. One of the reasons why it's your favorite show is because the music was curated so well. If you like, I can say one of my two of my favorite soundtracks for television shows was Suits. Because they had things like Charles Bradley on it, they had like the Otis Redding, they had really cool stuff, and like Harvey Specter's dad was a jazz saxophone player, so he had some jazz incorporation in there. Really neat stuff. And then Luke Cage, which was the Marvel TV show on Netflix. Was it Marvel? Oh my God, I'm probably gonna get shot if it's DC. No, it's Marvel. And they had like a lot of Harlem influence. So like you have like Harlem soul, Harlem hip hop, Harlem jazz, because there is such a niche market. So the person who had to curate that had to have a very vast knowledge or really great research in finding like Harlem specific genre stylings. So I mean, as much as it can be a mundane and tedious job, I do think it is one of the more entertaining sides of the music business and the music industry.
That's the fun part, though. Picking the song is the fun part, but then having to clear it is a whole other thing. Right?
What goes into that? Like what happens with clearing?
Oh, dude, it's like the biggest mess sometimes. Like even the biggest companies. Like I've been in talks with Universal for like 9 months to clear a song.
I believe it. It's Universal.
No, but it's like if that's the biggest publishing company in the world, like why is your process not like easy, right? So like it's just like such, especially like when you're working with somebody that has a vision, like they're like, I want this song, and you're like, you can't get the Rolling Stones in your song if your budget's $1,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where it gets difficult, because you got to find replacements or whatever, but then actually getting to clear the song, you have to like, it goes from like the publishing department to the intern to the legal to like back to you to get signed, and then they have to sign it again. It's just like it's not as fun as it looks on the surface.
So like if I'm gonna dumb this down, in terms of the difference between down payment and residuals, are the musicians or bands or anything like that, or even the labels, are they going more for residuals for larger movies and film and stuff like that? Or are they looking for that buck right away?
Both. It really depends, because the fee up front is like the main price tag. Like they have the price point that they set. But then afterwards, they want to know where that movie's being distributed and if it's going to get played. Like if you get airplay on like CBC like 6 times a year, like that's a good paycheck, right? But if you're just going on like bootleg streaming sites or something, they're not going to see much royalties, right? So the price point originally kind of like sets a precedent for the price, but then the royalties are kind of like secondary in a way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, money up front. I mean, everybody wants money up front.
No, it is important. It's important to know that, because a lot of musicians that we talk to, they're all about that royalty. You know what I mean? That's minuscule. I mean, like you won't see that money for a very long time, no matter how big your song is, because it's got to go through like 6 different hands before it gets to yours, and by that time you see $5. So the big thing is like you want to be paid for your work. It's like being paid up front for a job.
Yeah, all my session work, it's always like, just pay me right
there.
And I'm like, I don't even, I'll sign whatever. Don't worry about royalties. Whatever, just if it blows up, tell them I was there.
And you and I should you and I should talk about that too, because there is a big difference, and I've been stuck in situations. No, I've been stuck in situations too where it's like, is it more worth it? And this is kind of something that you got to figure out on the spot, because if you believe in the project a lot, then you make the decision to go royalties. If you don't think it's going to go very far, you go for that lump sum right up front.
And that's the sad, that's Yeah, that's kind of like where you're almost disrespecting the person if you go to that
How do you make
conversation.
it? Yeah, there's got to be an etiquette to
I think
doing that.
that's also just like standard business. It's like if you're working for, say, a startup, would you prefer ownership or do you want a salary?
Yeah.
And then you have no ownership moving forward.
Right.
So that's like if you truly believe in the product, then yeah, I'll take ownership over like no money up front. But then if you want to just like put in your work and then go home, then you take the salary.
That's the thing about our industry. You got to be in it for the long con. You know what I mean? You won't be seeing, like, there was times I didn't see things for like 10 years, man. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I forgot I even did that.
That's the hard part. Because, so many of my friends, you're making, have a really good year with maybe licensing, with gigging or whatever. So then all of a sudden they're buying rounds at the bar or buying a big TV
right.
or whatever. And because you kind of like, oh, this is happening and this is whatever. But you got to that's kind of luckily I was smart that way. I always like, oh, okay, this is great. This is a great week. Cool. I'm not spending 80% of that.
Right.
You got to put it in your pocket. But
yeah, the music industry has changed how we budget things, because you're not getting even back when it was just like downloadable music, you had to purchase like pay for play basically. The days of streaming took away, even if you were getting like, if somebody was buying your song say 60 times, that's $60 coming to your pocket, believe it or not, because even your distro deal, they're not taking that much off the top. They're taking, I think, 2%, like something stupid
because
like
they got
that.
so much. Yeah.
And then so you're seeing like a good 80, like at least 80% of that money, depending on who you have to pay after that, like your management or whoever. But I mean, you're walking away with money. Now it's like, you get 0.000003. It's like, when did my paycheck become a freaking binary number? Like,
no one ever taught us this in school.
Nobody told me that there was that many decimal points.
No. Until if I got into music, the zeros were going to be on the other side.
But I thought in Canada, when they got rid of the penny, I didn't have to worry about pennies of pennies. Like,
you think you would keep the penny for musicians?
Remember the days of busking? Somebody would just throw their change that they had in their pocket. It's like, okay, great. I got a candy wrapper and a few pennies. This is great.
Oh my God. I used to work at the nightclubs, man.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, I'll take the quarters.
Yeah.
And nickels, dimes, and pennies.
My favorite is sometimes get the Abraham Lincoln, you get the American penny. It's like, I wonder how much that's worth in Canada. It's worth 1 cent.
Yeah, it's worth 1 cent. Yeah. Just put it in a little bag, and then when you go to New York, you spend it all.
Or you hit somebody with it. I mean, it's a good weapon. If you're going to New York, you're going to need that weapon.
Well, this was great.
This was a lot of fun. Joel, thank you so much.
Yeah,
where can people find you?
Yeah.
How can people send you more submissions?
Yeah. So how do they send money? How do they send submissions? And
sponsors, listen up.
Just go Instagram, Aurora Palooza with 2 A's at the end. I think they can spell that. You think they can spell that?
I think so.
I think so. We'll put it up. I'll put it up on the screen at the bottom here, and if I don't forget, I'll put it up on the screen at the bottom. No, now that I've said it, I have to do it. So I'll put Aurora Palooza right here.
Not here.
Yeah, maybe I'll put it on Manny's face. I'll just like a square of Aurora Palooza.
And my 2 eyes will be the A's.
No.
2 A's at the end.
You overestimate my editing ability. So Aurora Palooza 2 A's at the end on Instagram, so people can give you a chat. They can send their submissions. I'm sorry, I know you already got 1,000. Look, if you send a submission if you're good.
Yeah.
Okay?
Cut the shit.
Can we just weed through the crap? This is the vetting process right here. If you're actually a good band and your only compliment isn't from your parents, then maybe consider sending a submission. And how about stipulation of what to send in a submission? Are you looking for live footage? Are you looking for Spotify playlist? What are you looking for?
Spotify is usually good enough.
Okay.
Live footage is great if you got it, but I wouldn't say it's a requirement. But yeah, just shoot it my way.
Yeah.
Instagram's even good. Usually they got like a link tree link or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, whatever can get me listening to your music.
Yeah. And remember, he's already got 1,000. Just if you don't get selected, it's
Don't
like,
be offended.
Don't be offended.
Don't be ass hurt, man.
You know?
I'm not going there because I didn't get picked.
Has a date been selected for Aurorapalooza this year?
Tentatively August 20th.
August
I haven't
20th.
received the official permit, so it could be the 13th, but mid-August.
Okay.
Mid-August.
So, more updates on Aurorapalooza or anything regarding Aurorapalooza, or if you just want to talk to Joel because he's a cool guy to talk to, check out the
Sounds like he's not
Aurorapalooza
busy.
page. Yeah, it sounds like he's got some spare time, you know, like when he's not doing everything else, including getting people like us paid. So, or if you just want him to foot your bill for something. I don't know. Apparently he's got a decent credit card. And his credit card number is 5. Joel, thank you so much for being
Joel.
with us.
Yeah,
and
thanks for
this was a
having me, guys.
blast. And we will see you in August. Hopefully before that, but we'll definitely see you in August. We'll come out and support and hang out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Are you live streaming again this time or no?
We are.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right.
Dope. All right, guys. We will
Bye-bye.
see you next week if I remember.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, guys. Take care.
Behind the Hooks. With Manny DeGrandis.